When you come into the world, we take on the identity of those who are more powerful than us. What we're looking for is a kind of person who is looking for meaning. What's the meaning of life? Why am I here?
Well, hi, everybody at home, and hello to the audience. This is the Sunday Conversation, and I'm happy to do it. I'm happy to report that my father is doing well, and my mom and dad had a wonderful dinner, kind of a date last night. David and I were there, and it was a lot of fun. Yeah, it was good. Anyway, I'm Alan Masters. This is my brother, David Masters. In case you're just joining us, welcome aboard, you folks that are here. Howdy. So I have something interesting. A friend of mine and I were talking early this morning on Sunday morning. We got up early to watch President Trump talk about how they just killed the founder and leader of ISIS, and how he was trembling,
Coward.
Trembling,
Sniveling.
quivering, sniveling coward. Yeah. And of course. And what a coward, what a rotten SOB to take 3 of his children with him. But anyway, that's a whole other story. So, but what we ended up talking about was just so sweet and so simple. And it ended up with this. You know, Christmas is coming, and we're all looking to give gifts, right? I mean, this is kind of the traditional thing we do. We want to show our love for our family members, so we give them gifts. I was always taught, and I know you, David, my brother, that you give something when you want to give it. Not because there's a particular day or a special day. You do it because you want to do it. And then there's no obligation. Hey, here's something I wanted to give to you. I thought of you when I saw it, and boom. And then you just graciously go, oh, thank you. And it's so much easier to not have to feel, oh my gosh, now I got to buy them a present. With Christmas or holidays and even birthdays, when you give it, there's a little string that goes out with it. All right, well, he spent 300 and it looks like about the receipt, $350. I love it when people give me a gift and there's a receipt in the box. And so in case I want to return it and get the money, or maybe the shoe's the wrong size, and I go, whoa, geez, now I got to spend $149 on him, right? It's like, so I don't really like
Really?
to get
I never knew that.
Yeah, well, it happens.
I'll just take it.
I know. But I realize in my life that I don't want anything with strings attached. I don't even want a debt of gratitude. Have you ever heard that? I owe you a debt of gratitude. No, you don't. If I give you something, there's no debt. I don't want anything back. Please don't give me anything back. I wanted to give you this. And I think maybe it's even best to say, and please you don't have to give me anything back. I don't want anything back. I wanted to do this for you. You're free. That is a real gift. So my wife and I were talking. Sometimes I have a problem, and it's not a problem for me, but it's a problem in our family, that when the birthdays come, I'm not like, here's a present for your birthday. I think, what can I do for my son or daughter? What do they need in their life? Okay, they need socks, underwear, and pajamas. We know that. That's always the given. They need pants. They need shirts. That's always the given. But in their life, what do they need? All right? I want to give them a gift that has meaning, that doesn't have any strings attached. You know, a refrigerator. You just got a new house. I want to buy you a new refrigerator. That's pretty cool. Well, what's he going to do now? Buy me a refrigerator? No, he doesn't need to. It's like no strings attached. Not maybe on your birthday, maybe a few days later, because then it comes straight from the heart, and it's just, wow, that's love, okay? So I'm a little different in that way, and it causes a little rub, and I'm sorry, Jan, that I actually said that in front of the world, but because we had this discussion. It's like, you know, sometimes right on the birthday, I'm not there with the $100 bill, and sometimes I am. Here's $100. Yeah. When they're little, you give them a little toy or something. But as my kids have gotten older and becoming adults, I want to find a gift that is meaningful to them, and it's no strings attached. It's just called love. And I want to love my children in the right way. And so today it's like, imagine what could you give somebody like me? I've got everything. I've got a wonderful family. I got a nice house. I got nice cars. I got boats. I got canoes. I got tools, toolboxes. I got abundance of everything.
A pedicure.
Hold on. No, I just do it myself. Point is, that's a manicure. Pedicure's toes. I can't reach the toes.
That's right.
I did used to chew my toenails when I was a little kid.
That is true.
Anyway, but imagine if you could give God a gift. What could that be? What could that be? And I love my wife sitting in the back says, your heart. Beyond that, what does God really desire from all of us? And truthfully, if you think about this, and I'm going to say it, if you think about it, it's the biggest gift that we can give to our Creator, our will. Because if you yield your will to Him, then you become a tool of Him to change this world. Your heart goes along with your will, of course. But what happens is when you give your will to God, then you become truly His. Right? So if you want to give God a gift, then you yield your will to Him, you give it up to Him, and then you can be a tool of His good deeds and good doings in this world. And I thought about that, in this little conversation we were having this morning, and I thought, yeah, yes, it's your heart. Yes, it's your soul. But what are the keys? What are the keys to the soul? The will. The will is us trying to be God. The will is us trying to use our intellect to solve our problems. But if you yield the keys, the will, to God, then He is the one that can change your life. You can't do it on your own. You can't start your own engine and, you can try. Oh, yes, you can toil. But you really can't be a warrior for God and of God without yielding that will. So I just thought that was nice. What do you got?
They say great minds think alike. And so this morning I was thinking, well, what are we going to talk about today? I don't know what Alan has, but the word trust comes into my mind. Trust? Interesting. So I start looking, and just to set it up a little bit, I love what you just said. But I think trust is actually a precursor to will. Because if you don't trust your Creator, then it's going to be harder for you to say, okay, I'm going to do whatever you want me to do no matter what. And that's your will. Just have me do it, I don't care. But if you don't trust God, which, by the way, most people don't, that's sad to say. They don't really, because when it comes right down to it, even Job really didn't want to do what God told him to do in the Bible. He told him to go tell this king that he was wrong. And he kept thinking, I'm going to get killed. He's not going to like me. But when he actually, so my point is, I'm thinking, okay, trust. Now, I'm thinking, okay, so what does the Bible say about trust? Trust, because, see, it's the opposite of fear, in my opinion. And the other thing is that most people put their trust in other people. And they make those people their gods, lowercase, little gods. And then when you disappoint them because they put their trust in you, you're the only person I ever trusted. And you've disappointed me. Think about it. That's really weird if you think about it. Because whenever somebody says, well, I got to trust you with my secrets. Like, wait a minute, hold on. You put your trust in me? Put your trust in God. So I found a few things that I thought were very good. Proverbs 3:5 and 6. It says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. Whoa. Lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to Him. Now this is what you're saying. And He will make your paths straight. But trust comes before submission. You won't do it if you don't trust God.
Right.
Any thoughts about that?
Yeah, it's interesting because a person said to me the other day, I don't know if I trust God.
Ooh.
And I thought, how can you not know if you trust God? I think they're leaving a little hope like, well, if I trust God, if I leave a little maybe that there's a maybe God, then when the times really get tough, he'll pick me up. When somebody says to me, I don't know if I trust God, it's like you're basically saying, I don't trust God. And I'm just betting a little bit over here on the side for later. And I mean, you're 100% correct that you must trust and yield is basically what that said, trust and yield.
Yep.
And in my life recently, things have been changing. And I thought, one conversation in our household was a while back, I thought, who am I? Who am I to sit up here and talk? And I know you've probably thought that too.
Every day.
Our Father is the He's the great one in our lives and in many of your lives. And he is the great one of this realm that we have been in our whole lives. We don't know anything else. We have an odd family that we didn't really have a lot of interaction, barely any with our aunts and uncles. And I don't even know most of my aunts and uncles. I met my dad's uncle, one time in my life in 1968. I don't know, you might have seen him twice.
Uncle
times.
Lou?
Uncle Lou?
Yeah, probably twice.
So my dad's brother, who is a Hasidic Jew, they argued all of their lives about religion. And I was like,
Well, just to
Wow.
make it clear, Uncle Lou wanted Dad to become a Hasidic Jew.
of course.
And that's, my dad tried to help him understand.
Right.
Jesus came to fulfill all the laws you're still worrying about.
Right,
So-
right. But even one of his own sons, Uncle Lou,
Yeah.
married a shiksa, which is a non-Jew.
That's our cousin Jonathan.
And he's a fantastic human
Yeah, he
being.
is.
Love him.
Absolutely.
Have not seen the other cousin, David,
Who's a rabbi.
who was a rabbi since 1968. I was born in 1960. You
Yep.
in 52?
Come on.
54, right?
No, 54.
Yeah. So we grew up, my mother's brothers, I never met one of them. Never met any of her brothers.
Well, I did meet cousin Larry one time.
One time. My mom is from Alabama and my father is from London.
Yeah.
So you can imagine, that makes me George Costanza and him, what's the other guy's name?
Kramer.
Kramer. That's okay. But I mean, we grew up in a weird household, I mean, we have a dysfunctional family like all of you. Life is about this journey that we're on to find out what life is about. And then when you kind of start to realize, you're like, oh, so all that stuff I thought I had to achieve doesn't really matter. Doesn't matter that you're not the great one, because the great one to us is an evil cult leader to others,
Ooh.
right?
Maybe
So
that's
it's
why
all-
I never wanted to be the great one.
It's all it's all in your perspective, right? So it's just so interesting. I remember thinking to myself, well, I'm going to have to go out and achieve things in life. I'm going to have to show the world that I can do this. So I got a fake name and I set out into the world, and I did achieve things. But every time I would achieve it, it was just like when I was in 11th grade and I thought, when I become a senior, I'm going to be a man. You all remember being in 11th grade thinking next year is going to be the best year of my life? And you found out you were the same idiot you were last year. First day of school, you're like, I'm still an idiot. What happened? So I was so disappointed that I wasn't a man in my senior year. I was just so disappointed. So I'm going to start from where I kind of am and go backwards and tell you a little bit about these achievements. It's kind of weird. So next weekend, I'm the co-chair of the Harvard Business School Person of the Year. Okay, that's pretty cool. The guy that won it is a friend of mine who happens to be the Undersecretary of State for the Economy, Energy, and the Environment. Why did he invite me to be the co-chair? I don't know. He likes me. He's judging me on the merits of this man. He doesn't know the rest of the story. Now, let me go backwards for you. I also work with Entrepreneur Magazine. I do a radio show for them. It's called Entrepreneur Weekly. You can look it up. Before that, I was the face and voice for Inc. magazine. Before that, the publisher of Inc. was the publisher of Fortune magazine. I was the face and voice for them and Money magazine and CNN. So for CNN, Money, and Fortune. It's pretty cool stuff, right? Before that, I had a car show, radio show for 20 some odd years. That's fun stuff. Before that, I owned a wrecking yard. Before that, I was a body man in a body shop doing my own thing. Before that, I dropped out of high school. Now, let's go from dropping out of high school to being the co-chair of the Harvard Business School Person of the Year.
Destroy this tape immediately.
I'm not him. No. But here's the thing. All those things I wanted to achieve in life, I did and don't mean anything because I'm still a high school dropout at heart. I'm a high school dropout.
Which actually doesn't mean much anyway.
And it doesn't mean anything either. But that was going to be my point, and he stole it from me.
Oh, sorry.
It doesn't mean
Well, just so you know, I went through all
anything.
12 grades and I didn't drop out, but I didn't pass high school either, so
You just didn't graduate?
no.
But here's the thing.
Actually was surfing most of that time. So.
I realized...
High school was a great place for me to drop out of in the early mornings.
Right, and I tried to do that too, but I got in trouble. Point is that I realized that so much of life that we perceive is just all a mirage. It's all fake. It just doesn't matter. And all of a sudden we look at the world around us and you're watching on the news that all this college debt and all this debt that people have associated with the plaque on the wall in their bedroom because they're a plumber's assistant now, because all they want to do is have a job. I'm just trying to get a job. I want to learn a skill, and I want to go out and, yeah, I've got a college degree. I've got a master's degree. I got this degree, that degree, that degree. But they're not using any of them, and most of what they learned along that path is not really applicable to real life. So now I've done all that, and I look back and I go, I was afraid to tell people who I was. Afraid is the wrong word. Cautious. Cautious to tell people who I really am. And I remember, and I have a friend here today. He's like, I don't want my whole life out in the world for people. And I'm like, you know what? It's okay after a while. It's all right. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. And so I look at where I am right now. My dad asked me to help him run this organization. And I'm like, okay. All right. I said 5 years ago, I stand ready. So when my dad asked me, I said, all right, I'll do it. And so here I'm doing it. Puts everything else I've worked my whole life for in total jeopardy. Do I care? Not really. Because what profit a man to gain the whole world but lose his soul in the process? So do you really gain anything? Let's just take some of the people that have recently died that we know of. Steve Jobs from Apple. Gained the whole world's respect for what he did, but he's under the ground right now, and all that he made doesn't matter. His kids have it, his wife have it, it's all gone. But he couldn't take any of it with him. But the ripple effect of your life is what you leave behind that ripples out into your children. David and I for my father and other family members. His books, his teachings, his philosophy, things he's said along the way that have helped people. I posted a couple of pictures of my mom and dad on my father's Facebook page, Roy Masters, if you want to look at them, of my mom and dad on their little date last night. Please, or last night, tonight is Sunday, so it would have been Saturday night. This video will go up several days from now, but just scroll back a few days on Roy Masters' Facebook page. And I posted a picture, and there's a picture of you in there. I don't know if you saw it. Dad had his hand on Mom's face, and he was just cupping her face, and he wasn't really saying anything, and he was just smiling at her. And you were looking at Dad, and it was really kind of a sweet picture, so I'll give it to you. But the ripple effect of our life, after it's all done, I look at my dad now here. He's 91 years old. And what is all behind him is all the things that he's done in his life, the good, the bad, and the ugly, he hasn't done everything perfect. He'll admit that. He's done his damnedest. He's lived valiantly. He's boldly gone where no man had really gone like he has before him, because each of us has an ability to do something different as the world continues to evolve. My father was very much of a pioneer in the talk radio world, 55 years. He was kind of the godfather of talk radio. He wrote books. He made records. He wrote little pamphlets and newsletters, and then the internet came and you can buy online. And my dad, he doesn't have a high school education, I don't believe either. I asked him the other night. No high school education, but he's got honorary degrees from schools big and small. But it all doesn't matter. All that stuff that we think really matters, all these degrees and all our accomplishments, when it comes right down to it, in the eyes of a child, you could explain all these wonderful things to a little child. They don't care. All they do is look into your eyes and into your soul and see if you're kind, if you have love in your heart. That's all they see. And I'm telling you, at the end of the day, that's what it takes to get to where we're all supposed to be going, is that innocence, that you leave all the puffery behind, you leave all of the accomplishments behind you, you peel them all off like peeling that onion, you peel it all off and you go back to that little child, that simple, beautiful spirit that cares about everybody, not about their color, their creed, their accomplishments. None too much, but all men count with you. I love that poem from Rudyard Kipling, If. And I read one last night, Invictus. It's heavy. Mandela said, I guess many people on my Facebook, I posted it, and they said Nelson Mandela used to recite that in prison often. And it basically boils down to never giving up your spirit. They can break you, they can break your bones, they can mar your flesh, but they will not get to the spirit. And if we could just find a way in our lives simply to get back to that, that's what it's all about. And that's what is at the core of my father's meditation. That is what is at the core of the be still and know that I am God. It's that stillness that we need to find in our heart. And it's the yielding of the will and the ego and the pride. You have to will those, or you have to give those up, yield those to God in order to be His conduit for His message. So,
Let me support what you just said
okay.
with some scripture. This is Isaiah 43:1. It says, but now, this is God speaking to Jacob. But now this is what the Lord says. He who created you, Jacob, he who formed you, Israel, do not fear, for I have redeemed you. I have summoned you by name. You are mine.
Wow.
Wow.
I'm going to say something I heard, and I put this on a little meme and put it out into the world. The devil knows you by name, but calls you by your sin. God knows your sin, but calls you by your name.
That's good. That's very good.
Same basic thing. In other words, we are all going to sin. We are all sinners. We're born into sin. And then we start judging ourselves. As soon as we become aware, as soon as we become ashamed, we start to judge ourselves, which is so ridiculous. But it is so part of us, by our parents, by our friends, by our religious affiliation, I'll say it that way, because religion and being religious and being spiritual are two different things. Mm-hmm. And man, we got to get back to the basics. You watch old Trump up there. You may not agree with all his funny little things he does, but we're human. But if you look at the core of the stuff he does, he's following this unknown. Maybe he would, I guess maybe at this point in his life, you watch him a little bit, he's letting a little more of his spiritual nature out, and he's letting people know that he believes in God and that he needs God's help to make these big decisions. But you watch him, and he comes out today, Sunday morning, with the fact that they killed that head of ISIS.
Al-Baghdadi.
Al-Baghdadi. And when he first came out, he walks out in front of the microphone and my feeling is that little moment of pause, I was watching him, he's thinking, I really hate that I have to read a teleprompter. Right? Because I've had to read a teleprompter. It's not easy. Because, by the way, when you read a teleprompter, and we all saw it in News Anchor, what's that guy? What's that movie? Come on. The movie where the guy was a news anchor, and whatever they put on the teleprompter, he would just say, and at the end, they put a bunch of nasty words on there, and he just read them like, good night, San Diego, and blah, 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 blah. And it was like, whoop, because they read the teleprompter verbatim. There's no personality a lot of times. Hence the reason why shows on television with people with personalities do well. Rush Limbaugh, the Sean Hannitys, the people that have personalities that actually, you don't see them reading from the teleprompters. It's opinion news. But poor old Trump had to read the teleprompter today. And every now and then he'd put in there, like the dog that he was.
Was it the movie
and he
Network?
was a dog. No, it was Will Ferrell played
Anchorman.
Anchorman.
I didn't. Yeah, I couldn't watch it because I've been in the radio business.
Oh
too
no,
long.
you got to watch it. It's funny. Anyway, but I watched Trump reading the teleprompter, and he was wonky at it at best. Like it was going a little too slow. Like he probably said, "You got to do that a little bit slower. I can't read that fast." So the teleprompter, he's looking right at it, and he's reading, "And we went in and we annihilated him like the dog that he was," off teleprompter, and he was a dog. There's the real Trump, right? So I know that, they're like, read the teleprompter, don't say anything else, because he likes to just pontificate the way I am now and speak from the heart. But then he goes off the rails a little bit. But in our lives, we don't have a teleprompter. So guess what we do? We get the Bible and we use it as our teleprompter. Oh, well. But in between these chapters and verses, from one to the next, is life happening. And some of the time, that Bible you're reading is awesome. But some of the time, it doesn't have the answer for you. So guess what? You got to be in the right place, in your center, and then the living Bible, they call it, the real thing. The real thing happens where God speaks into your heart and shows you what to do. And it's not something that you can read out of a verse and chapter. It's how you deal with a moment. It's how you deal with it. It's sometimes, and I said it this morning to my friend, the power of doing nothing. Think of that. The power of doing nothing. So for a moment, Trump pulls all the troops out of the Turkey thing. 3 days they fought. Trump didn't have to do much of anything. I'm just going to pull back and let you guys fight your fight. Then the true power of the United States was even more evident to the entire world, because without us keeping these two dogs from fighting, move the hands, the dogs fight. The master comes back in and says, stop. And the two dogs back away. Or we tear them apart. But the strength, the United States, the strength that the U.S. has is sometimes the strength of doing nothing. And you have that same strength. When somebody comes at you with some thing, because it's best not even to say what it is, some argument, some daring you to make a decision. You have until midnight tonight. So you do nothing. You sit back and go, let's see what happens. But we are such reactive human beings. We think, but he only gave me till midnight. What happens if I don't do till midnight? What happens? We don't know. Let's see what he's got in store. He'll tell me what to do. Maybe at the last moment I'll say no or yes. And the other person is starting to think, he's not doing anything. We gave him the minute. What should we do? He's not doing anything. See, our perception is somebody else. We give up our power to somebody else when we should always give it up to God. Yield. Let God show you what to do. The power of doing nothing sometimes is the most powerful thing you can do in your life.
Can I
It's
add to that?
amazing. Please.
Well, here's another. I was just thinking, though, if you get your insight from God, from God's teleprompter, then that is authentic. But if you're not getting it from God and it's just the other way, then it's a heliprompter.
Right.
Anyway.
Hold on. I want to say something because, and I know you got something, but
Yeah.
it's interesting because, like even the word teleprompter, right? Coming in through the eyes, into the head, going through the roulette wheel and dropping in, takes a little bit of time. But when it comes pure from the source, it does not go into my head at all. It actually goes from my heart into my arms and my body, and I just move forward fluidly. And almost like every part of me, every cell in my body knows what to do. My head is second to know. My head's figuring it out, going, oh, yeah, that looks okay. My body's already doing it. I'm already moving towards grabbing a child before they fall, right? Okay, that's understandable. But it's the same way in a decision process that you make. Some decisions are made for you.
Yeah. So, perfect.
And if you're a conduit, you're moving because you're being moved from above, not from your own head.
Well, there's also circumstances in which you find yourself and that there's nothing you can do. You're just
Happens every
in the
day.
circumstance.
Yeah.
So I was reading Daniel 6:23. Daniel was put in the lion's den. We've all heard that story. So this is what the Bible says. It describes, though, how beautiful it is when you trust. Because when you're in a situation where you can't do anything, I mean, I watch these shows called I Shouldn't Be Alive. Have you ever seen those? I saw one where this lady was a doctor, and she was kayaking somewhere out in South America, and she got caught in a riffle, and she stayed under the water for 15 minutes and died. Nobody's supposed to come back from that kind of thing. But when they brought her out, they gave her, they resuscitated her, and she came back to life. But in her own mind, she was thinking, there's nothing I can do. I'm going to die right now. But she wasn't like freaking out. She was just...
She gave up.
She knew what was going to happen to her.
Right.
And so Daniel 6:23 says the king was overjoyed and gave, because the king didn't want to, by the way, to put him in with the lions. He gave orders to lift Daniel out of the den. And when Daniel was lifted from the den, no wound was found on him because he had trusted in his God. The circumstances are your perfect opportunity because you have a choice to make. What are you going to do? I used to give the example, if you're in an airplane and suddenly it's going to crash and you're dropping out of the sky, what do? Lose your fingernails clawing at the seat in front of you? Or do you just get quiet and just get reserved and just say, okay, this is where it's going to happen?
This reminds me of a perfect little meme that I saw and gave to my friend the other night. It was two pilots in the front of the airplane, and a light came on in the dash, and he says, oh my God, everybody's going to die. Oh, we're going to die. Everybody's going to die. Oh, that's the seatbelt light. So you're right. Our reactions are insane, right?
Yeah.
But if you stay calm, maybe you'll see that you've overreacted, even if you wanted to. Because yes, your fight or flight animal side wants to run or fight. But you have to be in control. And the only way you can be in control of that is to be in your center. And the only way you can do that is to exercise those spiritual muscles by the meditation exercise so that you will see and know the enemy when it comes. And that enemy is the reaction. It's the enemy of your spirit.
Or you have to be out of control and know you have no control and surrender the control.
How does that feel?
I'm getting there. But the point is, yeah, I've been there before
No, we
because
all have.
I've almost drowned a couple of times. And
But even getting angry, is you get out of control when you're like so
Oh.
angry. I had a quick story about this. I was arguing with a friend one time, and it was and it was back and forth about these principles of spiritual nature and things like that. And I was beating him pretty good. I felt. And all of a sudden, it was his turn to say something, and I was waiting for him because I thought, well, I feel really right about this, so. And he looks me right in the eye and he goes, you know what? I'm just going to shut the hell up. And I went, what? He says, I'm just going to shut the hell up because you're right and I'm wrong. And this is going nowhere. And I'm just going to shut the hell up. You're right. And I thought, isn't that cool? I've never seen anybody actually catch themselves in the middle of a fight and say, I'm wrong. You're right. Shake hands. That takes courage. That takes character. I love that. I want to be that guy someday. You guys all missed that. Someday when I'm wrong. That's what now you got it. Anyway, no, but I do. I really do. It's hard to admit you're wrong. It's hard. You're in the middle of an argument and you're like, that jerk! I'm not going to give him the satisfaction of letting him know that I know I'm wrong. So no, I'm just going to stay here and shut up. Shut up, but you should really say, you know what? I'm wrong. I'm going to stop. You're right. I apologize.
but it depends
Takes a lot.
upon how important it is for you to be right.
Well, there you go. You'd rather be dead than wrong.
Yeah. And
that's
it's
most of
actually
us.
quite liberating when you come to a realization that you're wrong, because what happens is you don't have to use the energy of your being anymore to defend that. You just go, you know what? I was wrong. And suddenly the light comes on. You know, the sun comes up, you hear the birds chirping. The rest of your energy up until that point was dedicated to fighting.
But it's funny because these are the notes I made one set of notes one time in the 59 years of my life to do what I've done. I usually just get up here and wing it. My dad says, get up there, it's good for you. Just wing it. That way God will talk to you. But the very first thing it says, a man's greatest victory is to conquer himself.
Oh, yeah.
Buddha says, a man who conquers himself is greater than one who conquers 1,000 men in battle. Whew, Confucius say, he who conquers himself is the mightiest warrior. And it boils down to what we were just saying. And those are notes from a long time ago. It's so, something we deal with every single day, conquering ourselves first. And really conquering, all it really takes is giving that gift to God, which he seeks most of all, is give up. It's like, I am not God. You are. Here's my will. Here's the part of me that wants to be God. I don't want to be God. I want to work your will. Show me what to do. Put it in every cell of my body so I move forward before my head knows what I'm thinking. What does that say? Don't let the left hand know what the right
yeah.
hand, right?
Yeah.
This is, don't let the head know what the God wants you to do with this mighty thing he gave you. This tool of his or the devil's. You know what a friend of mine said to me this morning? This is an interesting one.
He's my friend too, by the way. You don't own him.
He's staying at my house, so I have a
Well,
little
but,
ownership
you know,
until he pays his bill.
He thinks about me more than he thinks about you.
That may be true. He said, what if God forgave the devil? And I said very quickly, God already forgave the devil. But that doesn't make the devil stop being the devil, because we, like the devil, toil and trouble, create our own problems, like the devil. Maybe what if, my friend Steve, what if the devil went to God and said, I'm sorry. You're right, I'm wrong. Interesting, right? Interesting. What if? What if I had $1 million? All right, anyway.
Well, here's Romans 15:13. This is also like I think it's like when you all of a sudden you give up your own will, like you said, and you actually find the trust that you need to find in God. And so Romans 15:13 says, may the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace as you trust in him, so that you may overflow with hope by the power of the Holy Spirit. And again, there's an event horizon where you get to that point where you're either going to go on fighting. You're right at that horizon. And something is trying to tell you, stop fighting. Let go. Let God. But you're not going to do that if you don't trust that. See, I was thinking on my way here, is God a liar?
Why were you thinking that?
Every human being is capable of lying in this world. But is God a liar, or is God's word true? Is it truth, or is it a lie? And if you look at it objectively that way, how can you not trust God? If God tells you, I'm going to take care of you. It's like a father telling a son. I remember one time, it was my birthday. I was probably about, 5 or 6 years old, and I was going to get a new bike. So every time I'd come up to my dad, when am I going to get my new bike? When am I going to get my new bike? I was like pressuring him. So he says to me, you better stop, or you're not going to get the bike. I didn't even care. I said, I want my bike. He says, all right, not getting a bike. I guess I learned my lesson, didn't I? Because my dad's word was true. But then about 3 or 4 days later, a new bike shows up. And my point is that God doesn't serve you. He's not going to come rushing to your side or your aid.
We serve at the pleasure of God.
We've got to have that trust relationship. And if you're sitting there bugging him and telling him, you got to prove yourself to me, which is
Right.
what all these other people in the world are constantly doing.
Right.
Because I really believe that God is true. God cannot lie. That's the point I'm making. Is God's word a lie? It's just absolutely not a lie. He's going to do what he said he's going to do for you. And if you've heard it, you know it. And if you know it, you can't forget it. So really, you have no excuse anymore not to trust God.
I am mostly totally confused, but I know you are making a great point, I think. But I get what you're trying to say. It was a long route to get there. But,
but here's the thing.
God is the truth.
We know God by other people, and other people are liars. And we can't trust them because when we put our faith in other people, they're going to let us down.
Right.
But God will never let us down.
You know, it's interesting. In our lives, our dad has never been a Bible thumper. Although I see Bibles all over the house. I see stacks of Bibles, different color Bibles, big, thick Bibles. He's got a Bible that has more bugs in it than the backyard garden. He's got one of these that's like 1892, whatever, and the pages are 3 pages thick. He's got Bibles everywhere, and David brings in, his notes with some verses. And it's interesting because he doesn't really spend a lot of time talking about the Bible, but he will, like David has been doing, he will not maybe quote Proverbs and Isaiah and Daniel. He'll say, in the Bible it says such and such. He's very light, Bible light. And I was telling my Mormon friend early this morning, that I didn't grow up in like a church. I've been to 3 churches in my whole life where they were giving a church. I've been inside of churches. Of course, if you go to New York, you go to the St. Paul's Cathedral, I guess.
Church of the Chalupa.
The Taco Bell. But as I'm growing older now, I'm leaning into being so interested to see how much of my life that I did right and that I did wrong. Because I said to him this morning, I said, I hear these things and I read these things and I go, isn't that cool? I did that right.
Yeah.
I got that part right.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure he's thinking, yeah, well, if you read the Bible, maybe you would have learned it earlier on. But I'm like, that's all right. Everybody had their own path. I got my own path.
Can I give you a perfect example of that? You want to read the last one? It's really beautiful. You read it. I'll share that with you.
Oh.
Well, let me tell my story first.
Okay.
And I've told this before, but it's very instructive because when I was trying to learn how to fly a plane with my friend Steve, we would go up flying together, and I was pretty good at doing the takeoffs and the landings and everything else. And so if you want to get your license, you have to take a test. 700 questions. Now, I'm not a Bible learning, I'm sorry, scratch that, reverse. I'm not a book learning person very well. So when I heard it was 700 questions, I said, I'm never going to, and I didn't, but I couldn't pass the test because I couldn't retain that much knowledge. So he said, well, don't worry, there's a book that has all the answers in it. So I paid $50 for that book, and I got home and I started going through the page. Oh, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then I stopped. I don't know the questions. The book means nothing to me.
The Book of Answers.
The Book of Answers meant absolutely nothing to me. I think I have it somewhere still just as a keepsake. But the point is that with you and also with me, when I read the Bible, I already know that, but it verifies it for me.
Right.
And we are never going to be ready for the answers until we want or have the questions.
Right. It's like I said, life is happening in between each one of these parables.
Yeah.
And these stories and parables are the life that was lived back in the day. And so I call the Bible history. And if I look at schooling, the school of life, the school of hard knocks, the Bible's my history book. And then I take my dad's book, How to Survive Your Parents, which is right over here on the side. And
That's what you call the mystery book.
you know, you have that book. You have, well, I'm overweight and I've worked out and I've tried this diet. And there's a book called Eat No Evil. So if I'm overweight and if I'm, a glutton maybe. And then if, I get married, there's sex, sin, and salvation. And maybe I'm dating a girl. There's a book my dad has written for every one of these scenarios of life, which I think is really sweet. His legacy, right? For the school of hard knocks. But I think the history book is a really cool book that I've been reading.
Read the last one.
And very little bits and pieces. I take this big old fat Bible, big mistake, because I'm getting older, so I need bigger letters. I take it in my backpack, and it weighs like 9 pounds. And everywhere I go, it's like, so I'm getting a little hunchy. So if you guys notice, I have one shoulder down. It's from my carrying the Bible around with me. And then I took it all the way to this trip to China with me. Wow. I went to China for a week, and I was so exhausted because at night, while I'm working, it's night here. In China, it's daytime. While it's daytime here, it's when I'm supposed to be sleeping there, and my phone is ringing and texting, and I got so much going on, I can't turn the ringer off. So I was up like 23 hours a day, but I didn't find time to read any of my Bible, and I was so bummed because it's kind of like reading, a book that you watch people reading this book, and for me now, it's like I saw the movie, and now I'm reading the script of the movie, and I see so many more nuances. Yeah. So many more nuances that maybe even though I saw the movie, I seen 10 Commandments with Charlton Heston, but now I'm reading the script of it all, and it's like, wow, cool. So here's one more. Revelation 21:5. He who was seated on the throne said, I make everything new. Then he said, write this down, for these words are trustworthy and true. So, it's, again, life is happening, and we all sit here. You guys at home are watching. You folks here, we sit here and go, these are all beautiful things. We don't disagree with any of them. But I got a car payment due, and I spent all my paycheck on my rent, and I have no insurance right now, and I still got to feed my kids. What the hell am I going to do? There's no answers in that Bible for that question. So guess what? You better sit there and have a little meditation prayer, and you better then wake up and go, I'm going to pull myself up my bootstraps, tie them tight, go out and knock on doors and say, I'm a handyman. Do you need anything fixed around your house? I can mow lawns. I can change light bulbs. I can fix door handles. I can work on plumbing a little bit. I'll keep my shirt tucked in so you won't see my plumber's crack. Whatever it is. Where there's a will, there's a way. When I was a kid, David, you'll remember this. My dad, I wanted to buy a car and I wanted to, get some money. And my dad says, if you want to do what, you want to do, you better go out and earn some money. And I'm like, but this and that. And he says, just go knock on doors and tell people you'll wash and wax their car.
Yeah.
So I started doing that, making money. And a buddy of mine, we started doing that. And all of a sudden we went, let's make a flyer. We'll detail your car for $39.95. Wash, wax, clean, vacuum, do. And we went up and down the streets, and everybody, you would give us $39.95, take us about an hour because there was 2 of us. We're making $20 each. This was in 1976, right? That's the equivalent of $50 each.
More than that.
More. So we're like 2 young kids, and he was 15, I was 16. Then I thought, I got a friend who's here today, lives in Malibu. I thought, I'm going to go to Malibu. There's all kinds of rich people there. So we did the same thing. And I had an old convertible at that time. It was a 72 Impala convertible. It was all rusted out from Michigan. And my friend sat behind the steering wheel, and I went out into the street. There was a stop sign. There was a bus stop there and a stop sign. And when all those fancy cars pulled up to that stop sign, I'd run out and I'd go. And somebody'd say, hey, when can you do this? I go, I'll follow you right now. See? There's the will and there's the way. And I said, I got a friend right there in that car. I'll jump in the back and we'll follow you home. He goes, follow me. I ran and dove into the back seat, top down on the convertible, and we pulled out right behind this beautiful Porsche. Went to his garage, and he had a Porsche, a Ferrari, a Mercedes-Benz, a Jaguar. That guy gave us a nice big fat tip, and we did 4 cars at one place. We used to make ridiculous money. Had my dad not said to me, I'm not giving you the money, go out and earn it yourself, where there's a will, there's a way, even waving his hand, go out and wash cars for people. You like cars? Had I not done that, I had to ask the question, what is the best car wax out there? I want the best car wax. I want the car guys to know, and it happened to be Meguiar's Car Wax. Fast forward a few years, I go to a big trade show, and there's Meguiar's Car Wax. And somebody goes, oh, there's old Barry Meguiar, who's a real Christian dude, and he's been a friend of mine for years. I go, you mean there's a man named Meguiar's? And they, yeah, that's him right there. I tried to get over and talk to him. They're like, he was like big dude in the car industry. You don't get into him unless you have something to talk about that's important. Maybe spend some money with him. I went back the next year. This is very important. I'm telling this story because it all started with the wave of the hand, go wash cars. Went back the next year. I went up and I said, I'm doing a radio show. This was 1992. 92, I started doing a little car radio show. And they said, I said, I'd like to interview him. New angle. Where there's a will, there's a way. They took me over, introduced me to him, and he says, hello, young man, how are you doing? I said, I'd like to interview you. There was something about this guy right out of the gate. There was a beautiful spirit in there. And it was like overwhelming to me. He was such a big personality, but it wasn't an ego-driven thing. It was more of a beautiful spirit because this guy was a man of God, we'll say. He literally gave to God his life, and that's the way he's lived his life. Okay. It's interesting how because my dad waved his hand and said, "Go wash cars, make some money," I had a desire to do a good job. If you're digging ditches, be the best ditch digger. So if I'm waxing cars, I want to be the best car waxer, and I want to use the best products. He also had that same desire to have the best products, even if it costs a little more. So fast forward in my life. I had him on my radio show. I said, you're so good at this because you don't talk about your products. You talk about people's passion for cars. And because there's car people that are really passionate about their classic cars. And he says, he always used to say to me, if I do the right thing, God will provide. He says, and all I want to do is do good product, make sure that my customers are happy, make sure that the product does what it's supposed to do. And I thought, isn't that neat? Through the hardest times of my life, that guy became a sponsor of my show. Through the hardest times of my life, when times went up and down and around, he was always there for me. He was always giving me good spiritual advice. Never asked me to come to church with him. Just gave me good spiritual advice and was a pillar. He was a mentor to me. Through all these years of my life, I'm still friends with him today. We've been friends since 1992. What is that? 27 years or something. But look how one move forward to try and be independent, self-sufficient, not have a 15, 16-year-old kid, because one was 15 and one was 16, rely on dad to just dole out some money, which would have destroyed the spirit. Then I would be dependent on my dad. It continued the ripple effect of that. It gave me the ability to have a wife and children and a family and a business. And then he sold his business one day, and the new company that bought it didn't want to do radio anymore, and they stopped sponsoring my show. I'm still friends with him. I still love him for all the good things he's done for me in my life. But that one thing from when I was 16 has lasted because of my dad till I'm 59 years old. The principle that I have also for my children said, I'm not going to give you money. Go out and work and earn that money. And the ripple effect of that now goes out. See how doing nothing, like I said earlier, the power of doing nothing. But there isn't really a nothing. It's like a no thing. It's like I'm not going to enable you in a bad way by giving you the money. That's the easy way. I'm going to not help you so you help yourself. That's being independent, inwardly dependent instead of outwardly dependent. My children are inwardly dependent. That's what I want for them. And guess what? You don't know what that's going to do and how long it's going to have. One little thing has lasted now 45 years. And the people that it's touched, because my dad told me, I'm not going to give you money, go out into the world and work hard, do something. It doesn't matter what it is. Dig a ditch, wax a car, fix a well pump for somebody. My youngest is doing well pumps. He went from working for a well pump company to all of a sudden he's running a well pump company for another giant industry. He's like, Dad, I don't know if I can do this. And I'm like, just do it. And God will show you what to do. And you know what? You can always do like that TV show, Howie Mandel, Phone a Friend. Wasn't that Howie Mandel? Phone a friend if you don't know what to do. Call 2 friends, 3 friends, 5 friends. The answer is out there. How badly do you want to find the answer? How hard will you search for the answer? We can do anything. We got 2 hands. These are like 2 wrenches. And they're multiple changeable. You can do all kinds of things. You can pick the nose. You can scratch the head. You can fix something. There's a million things that you can do with these, but they're useless if it doesn't engage with this and this. So I'm just very grateful that my dad told me to go out and wash cars, because it's changed my whole life. It's given me the ability to be the co-chair of the Harvard Business School Person of the Year, because it gave me character. And that's what they want in that role, is character. They don't care where it came from. They don't care how you got there, as long as you did it legally, I guess.
Let me go back to what you said about earlier about we judge and we judge ourselves. And why I thought this was very important in Revelation 21:5 was because it's the first part of it that matters. He who was seated on the throne says, I am making everything new. Well, really what that said to me was, they're going to go through all these different phases of your life. You're going to think you're a failure. You're going to be angry at people. You're going to have, eating disorders and God knows what. But if you are eventually going to come around to believing in God and embracing his Son, Christ, you're going to be a new person in Christ. You're going to become a new person, and all of that old stuff gets wiped away. Everything on that old slate gets cleaned off, and you get to go on as a new person. And that the reason why I said, because the second part is write this down, for these words are trustworthy and true. God does not lie. He cannot. It's anathema to God. He cannot do something like that, because he is the truth. And so in the sense that, what we're all talking about, and I love that story, by the way, that you will benefit in ways you can't even imagine just by beginning to believe and trust. That's all I want to say.
It's interesting how, as I sit here and think about the story I just told, how the ripple effect of one man, if we just take Jesus for an example, look how Jesus has changed the world. One man. And what does it say in the good book? All it takes for evil to prevail in this world is for good men to do nothing, right? So if we look at one man's ripple effect throughout time and history, you can find many one man, one time each, that the ripple effect of their life it rippled out into cultures. You know, the Asian culture has a Buddha and Confucius. One man, one woman. There's not just men, one person. And I look at, my dad's ripple effect for all you watching and sitting here today and reading his books worldwide. One man, one little Jewish guy that had a little different way of looking at things and said things a little differently than the average Joe, and each time had the same fear that I felt by outing myself as a high school dropout. Who am I to be doing this? I'm outing myself. It could all come crumbling in. Oh, we didn't know that you're a high school dropout. You can't do this. The magazine could go, you're a high school dropout? They wouldn't, because most of the best entrepreneurs in the world didn't finish school. There's a fear that we have to get past in ourselves. There's a fear that is called doubt. You got to put a name on it, doubt. And when you doubt and have fear, it's because you have no faith and trust. Doubt and fear, faith and trust and faith, they're opposites. And so I almost, dare is the wrong word. I dare to live greatly, if you know that what that's part of, dare to live greatly. But that's not what I wanted to say. I stand ready. That's what I wanted to say. I stand ready because when something comes at me, and I got to tell you, I'm starting to get used to it and realizing that it's a wonderful feeling when you are hit smack in the face with something you don't know how to deal with. You either go, oh, shice. I know what you think I was going to say. Or you say, oh, Lord, here we go again. I need you. There's a light on. We're all going to die. Or, oh, it's the seatbelt light. Never mind. It's all how you deal with it in the moment. So guess what? You must stand ready. In my life, I've had opportunities to be ready, to stand ready, and to now I am being tested. I'm the man in the arena. I stand ready. All I have is a little knife and a little sheath, and here comes big David and Goliath. David, not you, but with the swinging the big giant ball with spikes on it and a sword, and I only have a slingshot and a rock. Isn't that standing ready? Isn't that courage? Standing in the face of fear and danger, and all you have is a slingshot and a rock, and here comes the big monster David and Goliath. Or no, it's the other way. It's Goliath. Sorry, I got that backwards. You know what I was trying to say, yeah. Right? Just in case, because I do have dyslexia, as you can tell. But the big giant Goliath. And can you imagine what it must have felt like that all he had was a rock and a slingshot, and here comes the giant? But you know what? I'm going to get that SOB.
I think that even God guided his hand to the right rock, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it could be a sharp one. Point is that stand ready, and that way when you get hit right in the head with something, and because that's what it feels like. My dad says, I got a big wallop. Have you heard Dad say that? Yeah. And I've heard him say it a few times, because he fell back, he leaned back in a chair, and there was no back on the chair, and he went, bam, and cracked his skull. Poor guy. But it's all part of his life's lessons that he's learning. And maybe it's all part of our lives and your lives' lesson. This one man sacrifices himself the way Jesus did to all kinds of debauchery so that we can watch how he deals with it. And he says, I got a wallop. And then I've heard him say it, okay, well, that was, a year ago. What was the latest wallop? Well, maybe these are realizations. But you get hit with something and you're like, I don't have a freaking clue what to do. Everybody's looking at me like I'm insane, and I'm sweating. The juices are flowing through my body like I want to run. Fight or flight mode. All those juices are flowing. And then you go, okay. Calm. That's it in a nutshell. You can't do it. Of yourself, you ain't gonna. I'm switching up the words for you. You cannot do it. Don't even try. Danger Will Robinson. If you're old enough to remember Lost in Space.
And by the way, the new one on Netflix is pretty good.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah, there's some good principles in that.
The thing is that we are so stupid because we think that we are smarter than we are. We are smarter than God. We are smarter than the devil. We are not. We are not smarter than the devil. We are not smarter than God. We are usually not smarter than a 5-year-old child. Because the 5-year-old child would know to say, Daddy! That's right. Shouldn't we be humble enough to just go, Daddy, help! I don't know what to do. But our egos and our wills and our intellect are going to get us in trouble. So I say, Daddy, help. And
Amen.
I just would say to you guys, the biggest gift you could give to God is your will. And with that, the strings that are attached are your heart and your soul. And it all goes together. And your life will become much easier. You will see that just how he provides for the birds in the trees and the little animals that run along the ground. You're one of his. But if you're not one of his, you can fend for yourself. And fending for yourself, as you've already found out, ain't fun. My life is unfolded in so many ways. It's so strange. And it's not what I thought it was going to be. I thought I was going to have a little, a dark-haired little boy. And the first one that came out was a blonde-haired, curly little blonde-haired, blue-eyed little boy. And I'm like, who you been with? That's not my kid. Because I had perception of what my life was going to be and what that kid was going to look like. And God, you tell God your plans and that'll make God laugh. God says, no, that's not what I have for you. And then the next one that came out was a little girl, looked more like me. And then 2 more little blonde-haired kids with blue eyes and all blue-eyed kids. And didn't life come out the way I thought it was? No. Didn't I have a perception of how marriage was going to be? And is it 180 degrees opposite of that? Yes. Our perceptions completely mess us up. Throw them away. Live in faith. Live wanting to know the truth and being a servant of God. And guess what? Every time life unfolds in front of you, it's like watching a flower unfold and it has this beautiful fragrance to it. Then you know it's yours. It's meant for you, that life. Not the one that is putrid that you have to keep hitting with Febreze. I'm done. Are you done?
I'm done.
I'm done. Okay, one last little announcement for those out in the world. If you've called the foundation in the last 3 or 4 or 5 years, you've probably spoken to a wonderful English woman named Margaret. And she's done a fantastic job. God bless you and thank you, Margaret. And she's going to be leaving us at the end of the year. And I am in the search of a very special soul and spirit and sweet nature. And if there's a person connected to that and you're out there, please reach out to me because we need somebody to help us to be the concierge for our Foundation of Human Understanding, the first point of contact. And Margaret has done such a beautiful job. She has a vast knowledge of all my dad's teachings in the books and how you can buy them and get them easiest or get them for free if the case be. And so we're on the search, and I need to do something, I can't say immediately, but relatively quickly in order to give her a chance to teach that person her job. So I am looking, the question is it for you? Maybe you can answer that. So please reach out to me. I'm Alan Masters, my brother David Masters. Thank you for joining us on the Sunday Conversation.
Bye.